I I don't like Christmas. That's my opener for you. I don't like Christmas. Okay, if you're new to our community, we like to have a lot of fun around here, and one of the kind of running things that we have going on is that I just don't like Christmas. Okay, I don't like the music. I don't really like the lights. I promise that you will not see my 2011 Honda Pilot with one of those red Rudolph noses and the weird ears, antlers sticking out of the windows. Like, I'm just not a Christmas guy. Okay, I am not full on like Grinch, very small heart, any of that. I just like to say that I have Grinch-like tendencies. Because here's the kind of spectrum that I present to you every year. There's kind of two types of people that exist on the spectrum. On the one hand are the folks like me, the more sane among us, that are a little bit more Grinchy than others. And then on the other end of the spectrum are the Buddy the Elf type folks. All right, the best way to spread Christmas cheer is singing loud for all to hear, and you like that, and you do that. So for the sake of my own research here, let's take a little poll. First, I want you to raise your hand if you are a little bit more towards the Grinch side of the spectrum. There's no shame. I feel alone up here, so there's some of you, okay? A lot of men in the room. Okay, all right. Now, where are my Buddy the Elfers? You can raise your hand now, or Christmas season. Yeah, you would shout and celebrate. You would. I do love how many of you are married to one another. That seems very, I bet that's interesting. But I'm a Grinch, okay? And I'm pretty open about that. I'm trying to be better, especially for my kids, but just didn't really like Christmas. Now, I wasn't always this way. I don't know who hurt me along the way, but I wasn't always this way. As a child, Christmas was the best time of year. You get out of school early, and then you get all kinds of parties and all kinds of junk food and staying at home and watching Christmas movies by the fire with hot chocolate while mom goes out and buys you all the presents that you want. Like, this was the best time of the year. And then Christmas morning was always the peak. I remember it. I've gone back and watched the videos that every year we had the same kind of thing going on. My older sister and I, we were told and instructed to wait upstairs. And then my parents were downstairs. My mom would be cooking cinnamon rolls. And then my dad was getting all the stuff ready together, putting all the presents out just right so we could come down the stairs and see what they bought us and what Santa brought us. And we were so excited about that. And then at some point, my dad would holler up and say, "Hey, it's finally time." And we'd walk down the stairs, and we would see on my dad's shoulders one of those giant VHS recorders. Yes, I am that old. Like one of those that you had to really get a shoulder into to hold. And he'd get it just right so that he could capture our faces as we walked down the stairs. And I've gone back as an adult, and I've seen those videos. I've seen the expression on my face. Not just happiness, but joy, but awe, but wonder. And so here's what I know is that I used to be that way. I used to love Christmas, and now I don't. So what happened in those 30 or so years to go from loving it to not exactly loving it? I'll tell you really, I've asked myself that question a lot over this past week. Why don't I love Christmas? And my answer now as a 32-year-old is very, very simple. I don't like Christmas because all of the stuff that I have to do. Okay, you're nodding if you've started Christmas shopping. There's all the shopping. In my defense, my wife does the overwhelming majority of our shopping, and so I get to find out with my kids what I got them for Christmas, and it's a fun little thing that we do, but there's still a lot of shopping to do. And then there's all the parties. It seems like every work or every friend group, you always have parties, and there's inevitably a white elephant gift exchange, so now that's more presents that I have to buy. On top of that, there's the putting out the lights. I don't know if you've put out your lights yet. I started on Friday, and I thought, you know what? I got 2 hours. I can get this thing done. People are charging like $300-$400 to put them on. I'm going to knock it out. I see you nodding your head like, no, you didn't. You're right, I didn't. Because I got them out, and over 70% of the strands, like half of it was out, which I just don't understand why. Soapbox here. Why if one bulb is out, the entire thing goes out? Why can't that one stinking bulb be out? So I had to throw those away, buy new ones. We're waiting on those to ship in so that I can restart again putting up the lights. There's so much to do. On top of that, I'm a pastor. Okay, Christmas season is our Super Bowl season. Okay, there's an event like almost every night of the week. And I get the opportunity to be at all of those events and put a smile on and be really excited about Christmas season. And then there's Christmas Eve and Christmas Eve, because we break them up here. This year at Loft, we are adding a fifth service. Okay, 2 on Eve, Eve, and 3 on Eve. Which means I am going to preach 5 times. And I'm gonna be so exhausted that all I want to do is go home after the 7 o'clock. I wanna sit by the fire, drink some hot chocolate, and then drift peacefully off to sleep. But that's not what I'm gonna do. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna finish wrapping the presents. I'm gonna start wrapping the presents, let's be honest. I'm gonna finish wrapping the presents, and then I'm gonna put together whatever kind of contraption my wife has bought for our daughters. So I thought about all this, and I'm sure you have a very similar story. This is why I don't like Christmas. This is why I don't get excited about it. I don't circle it on the calendar like I used to. This is why. This Advent season, which we're beginning today across all our campuses and communities, we're looking at this idea of the wonder of it all. What does it mean to recapture the wonder, the joy, the awe, the peace of this season? And so what I want to do this morning is I kind of want to walk you through what the Lord's been showing me over the better part of a month. To kind of see some things that I have wrong within me, and maybe you might see some similar things alongside you, to see how we might be able to recapture the wonder of this season and the true joy that it can bring. So for my type A folks, here's what we're gonna kind of do. I'm gonna give you kind of the problem as I see it on a 30,000-foot view of why we don't have a lot of wonder, not only in Christmas season, but all throughout our lives. And then we're gonna talk about a fake solution that some of us try to run to try and push down this problem. And then at the end, we'll see that the real solution is having hope in a God who came down. And a God who can and does still do the impossible. That's how we recapture the wonder this Christmas season. Okay, but let's start with the problem. What's the problem? Why do I get so caught up in all the stuff that I have to do? Why do I miss the wonder of Christmas and the rest of my existence? This is gonna sound more academic than it actually is, so we'll break it down. But here's the problem. We are all discipled by a rationalistic world. Okay, stick with me here. We are discipled by a rationalistic world. That first word, discipled. If you grew up in church, you've heard that word, that we are called to be disciples of Jesus Christ. What does that mean? It means we not only believe in him with our mind, but we follow him with our heart and with our hands. We try to learn how he loved, and we try to love like he loved and do what he did. That's what it means to be a disciple. To follow after him and to sound like him and to be like him. But here's the reality, is that if you would not consider yourself a Christian, and even if you would, chances are you're also discipled by a lot of other outside factors. Here's what I believe. We are all discipled by something. You are being shaped, and you are being formed, and you are being molded by some force that's outside yourself. Okay, maybe if you were to ask yourself this, you realize that you're discipled by your boss. That really your first thought in the morning is, what can I do to make her happy with me? Or what did I do wrong last week to make her mad at me? And your entire existence, all that you're trying to do is trying to impress your boss. Maybe you're discipled by the media that you consume. Luann preached a great sermon about that last week, and you realize that all of your thoughts and all of your emotions and all of your speech is really dictated by what you're consuming. Maybe for my younger crowd here, maybe you're being discipled by a TikTok influencer. Or if you're a Christian, an Instagram influencer. And maybe you see how they eat and what their diet is and their workout routine and the kinds of things that they buy and the kind of people that they hang out with, the kind of experiences that you have, and you're trying to become like that. This, I think, is a really helpful exercise in every season of your life to ask this question: who am I being discipled by? Or what am I being discipled by? Good way to think about it is what's your first and last thought in the morning? What gets your heart pumped up? What gets you really excited or really angry? How are you talking? And how are those speech patterns being shaped by something else? We realized during COVID, we were not the COVID family that kind of gathered around and say, hey, we're not gonna do screens and we're just gonna play. And no, we put the screens on, okay? Forgive me of that. And one of the TV shows that my kids discovered during COVID was Peppa Pig. You know Peppa Pig? No Peppa Pig fan? That's fine. No fans here. But we knew that this was a problem, and we were watching, my kids were being a little bit discipled by Peppa Pig, when our middle daughter, Cameron, came up to me and she said, Daddy. And I said, what did you call me? Daddy, can I have a biscuit? I was like, no, we are turning this off. Go back to Sesame Street, okay? But what happens is that we're all shaped, we're all discipled by something. Now, what that's gonna be is gonna look individually different for all of us based on our life stage and kind of who we follow, who we spend time with. But what I believe is that we are all discipled by a rationalistic world. This world that we live in is really the offspring, the inheritance of a time period in human history called the Enlightenment. So you may have learned about this in like social studies in high school, and then you haven't really thought about it, but the Enlightenment really changed human history. The Enlightenment gave us some really good ideas, like the idea of progress and freedom and liberty, and some amazing thinkers came out of that. But really, the kind of the baseline belief of the Enlightenment time and now what we experience today is the fact that everything can be known. Everything can be seen. Everything can be observed. If you notice, a lot of the Enlightenment thinkers, they might have called themselves Christians, but really their underlying theology was what's called deism. This belief that God sure created the world and then like a watchmaker sent it out to have no interaction with it today. And realize it or not, we are the inheritance of this idea. And so some philosophers like Charles Taylor have said that we live in what's called the immanent frame, that really we don't have a category for the supernatural. We don't have a category for wonder. We don't have a category for God coming down because we live in this rationalistic world, cause and effect. The scientific method. Okay, if that's a little too philosophical for you, I've heard it described this way. Some of you this year went to Astros games. None of you went to Astros World Series games. But some of you, okay, somebody complimented me a few weeks ago that I hadn't made any jokes. There's your joke, okay? Go Rangers, World Series champions. Okay, but when you would go to an Astros game, one of the main questions on your way there was, is the roof open or is the roof closed? Right? If the roof is open, then you're leaving yourself up to chance. It could be 105 degrees, it could be 32 degrees, it could be raining, it could be snowing, all in the same 9-inning game because this is Texas. Right? There's no control there. But when you close that roof, suddenly you can control everything. You can control the temperature. You can control the humidity. You can make sure that nobody gets wet or snowed on. And what we live in is, if we're not careful, a world where the roof is closed. Where all that there is all that we can see. For me at Christmas, I think if I can do enough good stuff, if I can get everyone to behave, if I can buy the right presents and preach the right sermons, then I might have a magical Christmas. But that's living with the roof closed. Instead, here's what I know about my heart and yours. You were created for wonder. You were created for awe. You were created to believe that this world is more than just we see and what we feel. Instead, there's a magic quality, and that's where our awe and wonder comes from. And that's what your heart's after. You want there to be more than just this rationalistic, physical world. So where do we run? If that's what you want, I believe God has put that desire within you for there to be more than just this world. Where do we run? I find a lot of us, and I'll put myself in this category very often as well, we run to a fake solution. And what's that fake solution? Escapism. Escapism. We think there surely must be more to this world than just what we have, and so we want to escape, but so often we don't escape to healthy places. Maybe you come home after a long day of work that was just like the day before and just like the day before, and you just want to escape from that reality, so you drink too much or you pop a few too many pills just to escape for a moment. Maybe for you, you want to escape to a different world, and so you go upstairs and shut out your kids and just start playing video games to be in a different world. Maybe for you, it's you dive into social media and you scroll on influencers and you think, if I can live vicariously through these people, then I might feel better about my own reality. Maybe it's shopping. And you think, I want to break free from all that I can see here, and so if I just have some more stuff that I don't already have, maybe I'll feel a little bit better. Listen, escapism is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a rightly ordered desire and a wrongly disordered way of going about it. Okay, because even from our very young age, we're taught that there must be something more to this world, and that's where we get excitement. That's where we get joy. That's where we get wonder. This is why kids are so excited on Christmas morning, because they believe that a overweight man with a beard and a red suit came down the chimney. Right? There's something awe-inspiring, something magical about that. Right? The books that you probably read as a child were much in the same way. Help you escape from the reality by living vicariously through the characters. Maybe you grew up reading Harry Potter. And you know the story of Harry Potter. A young adolescent boy is kind of trapped in his regular reality. And then what happens? A big hairy man named Hagrid appears and says, "Hey, Harry, you're not just a boy, you're a wizard, Harry." And then he's taken off into a magical world called Hogwarts and escaped to a new reality, a new realm. Maybe you grew up reading Harry Potter, or maybe you grew up as a Christian, so you didn't. Come at me. My wife is making me pause here and say that she loves Harry Potter and she's instilling a love of Harry Potter on my children. So I just ask you pray for their souls, okay? So maybe your parents loved you and so they didn't let you read Harry Potter, but maybe you're a Christian, and that's a joke, don't email me. Maybe you're a Christian and you read C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia. Thank you. I got some Christians up in here, I like it. Right, same general idea. These young children are trapped in this reality that they don't love, and then what do they find on the other side of the wardrobe? A brand new world. And that, as children, is where we found our awe, where we found our wonder. So the temptation for those of us who have put a few more years on and are no longer kids or consider ourselves to be adults, what can happen is that instead of running to the wonder of a God who came down, we run to nostalgia. Okay, so stick with me here. There's a new phenomenon that I read about this time last year in CNBC. And it's the phenomenon of kidults. Okay, have you heard of kidults? These are adult kidults. Okay? Some of you just got that, wow. Kidults, and what they say about kidults is that kidults now make up over 1/4 of the market share for toys sold. So these kidults are buying things like Legos and buying things like Star Wars toys and buying things like Disney dolls for themselves, over 1/4 of the market share. They remember the wonder that they had as children playing with these toys, and they attempt to recapture it as adult. There was a market executive that was interviewed for the CNBC article, and here's what he said. He said, "The definition of adulthood has definitely evolved. What it used to mean to be an adult was to be a very upstanding and serious member of society. And to do that, you had to demonstrate it intellectually, emotionally, and in every other single way. Now," he says, "we feel a lot more free to express our fandom as a part of our adulthood." So you see here, the desire is to go back to being a kid because there was wonder in being a kid. And so listen, I'm not knocking on you if you like to play with Legos or you have Star Wars toys. Our senior pastor, Mark Sorensen, has a ton of Star Wars toys. I like my job, so I'm not gonna knock on that. If you're a Disney adult, I don't understand Disney adults, but I love you. I'm not knocking on that. But what I am saying is that running to all of those things that attempt to transport you to a new world is just a reality pointing to you that you were made for more than this world. It's just a signpost that there is more than just what we can fit in the box and that the roof is open. And for me at Christmas time, if I just try to recapture the joy of the season by getting presents that I like, I won't. It's a fake solution. So what's the real solution? How do we recapture the wonder not only in Christmas, but throughout our lives as a people of faith? The real solution is this. We find hope in a God who came down. This is the true meaning of Christmas, not the lights, not that awful Mariah Carey song, or not all the presents. Instead, the true meaning, you know this, is that God came down in the person of Jesus. And this event, we can almost become immune to it, but this is a radically earth-changing event, because here's what we know about 2,000 years ago when Jesus was born. The people back then had not experienced the Enlightenment, but they didn't really hear from God. In fact, in what's called the intertestamental times, for 400 years, there was not a new word from the Lord. There was no new prophet. There was no new manifestation of God's presence. So I got to think for those 400 years, people probably existed like a lot of us do. We're going to go about our daily lives. We're going to work really hard and we're going to love our family. And yeah, we're going to believe that there's a God that exists, but surely he doesn't care about little old me and surely he won't speak to me. And then the impossible happened. God put on flesh and came and was born in a manger in a little town called Bethlehem. Listen, that impossible moment proves that the roof is open. Proves that God still cares for us, proves that he has not forgotten us, proves that he has not forsaken us. God is still moving in our midst, even when it seems impossible. I tell you, so many people, even now, but especially back then, reject Jesus because Jesus doesn't fit into their rationalistic box. He doesn't make sense to them. He doesn't make sense to us. And so we say, I got to throw him out. But listen, to believe in Jesus, to have wonder in his birth, is to believe that he can do what doesn't make sense to us, what is not just mortal but immortal, and what is not just possible but impossible. This was one of Jesus' main messages. To come down and say, I don't know what you thought this world was about, but it's about me and I can do the impossible. Jesus says this to the rich young ruler in Matthew 19. He looks at him and the disciples and says this, with man, this is impossible. But with God, all things are possible. He says with man, when that roof is closed, this isn't possible. But when that roof is open, that imminent frame is broken, all things are possible. So my question for you is, what seems impossible in your life right now? I mean, really, outside the realm of possibility. Maybe it's your finances. Maybe with inflation and all the Christmas stuff coming up, you keep looking at it, you keep running the numbers, you just don't see how you're gonna get out of this pit. Maybe for you, it's in a relationship, in your marriage, that you've tried and tried to rekindle that love that you had and it just doesn't seem possible. Maybe it's with a wayward child. When you look at him, when you look at her, they are so far gone that you don't think they'll ever come back. Whatever you think is impossible, the story of Christmas that Christmas proves is that with God, all things are possible. So if you consider yourself a Christian, what we have to believe is that there's more to this world than just what we see. It's not just wishful thinking. We believe that to be true. This is what we call hope. What is hope? It's belief that God still does the impossible. It's belief that there is more to this world than just what we can see. It's hope that fills us with joy. This is what the Apostle Paul says to the church in Rome in Romans 15:13. He prays this prayer over them. He says, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit, you may abound in hope. He says, I want you to believe that there is something beyond just what you can see. I want you to know that there is a God out there who loves you and cares for you, even when it's hard to hear him or experience him. This is Christian hope. And listen, it's fundamentally different from the hope that the world has. I tell you, I keep hoping that maybe I'll recapture the wonder of the Christmas season by doing enough stuff and getting everything just right. And really, that kind of hope is always going to let me down. See, when the world says hope, they really just mean wishful thinking. You say, I hope that I can save well enough to retire by 65. And you think if I just do enough good investing and I'm just really disciplined and I make the right decisions and I make enough money, then I'll be able to retire by 65. You're putting your hope in yourself. And listen, I love you, special snowflakes, all of you. You are not worthy of your hope. You have let you down more than anybody else. I have let myself down more than anybody has ever let me down. I am not worthy of my hope. You are not worthy of your hope. So you say, surely my spouse, my family, when life's going awry and everything's going wrong, I know that they'll still love me, so I can put my hope in that. I'm sure your spouse is lovely, but they're not worthy of your hope. Or your kids. I'm gonna put my hope in having them to live a better life than I lived. I'm gonna put my hope in making sure that they get the right grades and they get the right scholarships so they can go to D1 school on a scholarship and maybe I can retire by 65. Your kids are awesome, I promise. They're not worthy of your hope. If you put your hope within the imminent frame, if you put your hope within an enlightenment view, you will always be let down. The only true hope happens outside of it. That's what Christian hope is believing that there's more to this world. And if you really have that, not only are you gonna find wonder in this season, but the rest of your life's gonna change as well. A couple quick things about what hope changes. First, it's gonna change the way that you grieve. This is your first Advent with us. We get real here at Loft, and so we always say this at some point during Advent that we know that for some of you, this is gonna be your first Christmas without a loved one. Or maybe it's been years or decades since you lost that loved one, and every year still hurts. If that is you, we're here for you. We understand. I'm in the same boat. But here's what I also want to tell you. Hope means that we grieve differently. This is what Paul says to the church in Thessalonica in 1 Thessalonians 4. He says, "But we do not want you to be uninformed, my brothers and sisters, about those who are asleep, that you may not grieve as others who do not have hope. For since we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so through Jesus, God will bring him with those who have fallen asleep." Notice what Paul says and notice what he doesn't say. He doesn't say that if you're a Christian, you shouldn't grieve. Okay, there is holiness in grief. There is nothing wrong with mourning, with crying, with deeply missing that person who's no longer at your Christmas table. That's healthy and good. But what Paul does say is that we don't grieve as those who have no hope. The people who have no hope, who live in this enlightenment, rationalistic box, don't believe that there is anything beyond the grave, but we, because we know that Jesus came and was not only born, but lived and died and rose again, we believe that there is more to this world than just what the eye can see. And we put our hope in that our loved ones are in a better place and we will see them again one day. Hope changes the way we grieve. Last thing is this. Hope is going to change the way you see whatever situation you're facing. I don't understand how people in a rationalist kind of deist world that don't believe God is involved, I don't understand how they can overcome obstacles that life will give you. If you're in that category, I would love to talk to you, but when life throws you dead ends, we as Christians say, no, there's something beyond. I don't understand how it's gonna work, I just believe that it will. And if you live within that rationalistic framework like I so often do, it can seem like every dead end is the end. But what God says is that because Jesus came down and because I am powerful and because I have loved you, nothing is too hard for me. This is what he says to the prophet, through the prophet Jeremiah in Jeremiah 32:27. He says, "Behold, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh." And then he asks rhetorically, "Is anything too hard for me?" Listen to me, there are gonna be some things that are too hard for you. There's gonna be relational issues that are too hard for you. There's gonna be a health diagnosis that's too hard for you. There's gonna be some mental health stuff that is too hard for you. But the good news is that it's not up to you. God says, nothing is too hard for me. See, we believe that the world is more than just what we see, and we have hope in that, and that's where we find our awe, and that's where we find our wonder. But you say, "Pastor, that can't happen to me." Like, "Pastor, I want to believe for breakthrough. I want to believe for the impossible to happen in my life. I just don't have enough. I've been so shaped and discipled by this rationalistic world that I don't have enough faith." If that is, you hear these words from Jesus from Matthew 17. Jesus says, "For truly I say to you, if you have faith like the grain of a mustard seed, you will be able to say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move." And there it is again. Nothing will be impossible for you. You're gonna face some challenges. You're gonna face some obstacles that seem too strong for you, but what Jesus says is just the faith of a mustard seed and the power of God living inside of you means that God working through you, you will be able to accomplish what seems impossible. not because of you, but because of who God is and his power. The question is, are you open to the possibility of the impossible? Are you open to believing that supernatural still happens in the natural? And that's going to be my pledge to you. As a Grinch during this Advent season, I'm just going to open myself up to the possibility of what if the roof is open? What if God still listens, cares, moves, and does the impossible every day? My encouragement for you is to do the same, to believe in a God that breaks our categories, that gives us hope, and sparks within us the wonder of it all. Let me pray for us all, family. God, we do thank you that you do the impossible. And we thank you that you do the impossible in and through us, not because of what we've done, not because of who we are, but because of what you have done and because of who you are. So God, I pray for the person, I know there's somebody here who's facing an impossible situation. In all of their thinking and ruminating and going through possibilities, it just doesn't make sense how it could work. God, I pray that by the power of your Spirit, you'll move mightily, that you'll give them that gift of the faith of just a mustard seed so that that mountain might be moved away. And God, I pray for all of us in this world that tries to forget that you are still real and you are still moving. Open us up to the possibility of the impossible. Give us the awe, give us the wonder, and give us the hope that we need this Christmas season. We pray that in Jesus' name. Amen.